Look what I got. It's that time of year. It's pumpkin time. Here on the woodyard tonight, it's a fireside chat. Here we go. Hey, watch out for that. I put in some cedar in there, and it's snapping and cracking, poppling. It's explosive. That's what it is. So tonight, I thought I would have a little fire outside. It's only about 50 degrees. It's supposed to get down to freezing tonight. It's supposed to get down to 30. The sun's just setting now. And I felt like having a fire tonight because I delivered wood all day today. You saw that video yesterday, and I thought, hey, it'd be a nice night to sit out by the fire and talk a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do. So I got a bunch of questions and comments that people have made on the channel. I thought they're worth addressing, so I thought I would talk about it. Well, that's a fire. You like that? So I put in some cedar, like I said. There's some ash in there. There's some maple in there. And I think there's a chunk of oak in there. So stuff that I just took. I take a lot of the odds and ends from the wood yard, bring them home, a lot of stuff that's not real stackable or some people might think is ugly. I like the ugly wood, it burns great. The knots and the crotches and stuff like that burn fantastic. That is almost too hot, like I can hardly stand it. Okay, so we're gonna cover some things that people have asked me. Like I said, over the last few weeks, I haven't done a chat outside for, geez, it's been well over a month. So I'm gonna answer some of the questions. First question I'm going to answer is, how's Dad? I've had my dad on some of the videos in the past. He used to cut wood. He's 85 now. He's not doing too good. He's physically going downhill pretty fast. He used to walk 5 to 10 miles every day. Now he's down to a couple hundred yards several times a day. He just doesn't have the endurance or strength anymore, and he wonders why. He thinks it's the water or something. He doesn't realize that he's getting old. He was in the hospital a while back, and he was losing his balance because he stood up too fast. And he's going very deaf. He can hardly hear out of one ear at all, and the other one's not good. So he's losing his balance a lot, and he's falling once in a while, which is what gets a lot of us in the end. Gravity eventually wins. So he went to the doctors in the hospital for a couple days, and they did a bunch of tests, and they did some cognitive tests on him. He's got dementia. He forgets a lot of stuff. In a conversation, he'll repeat the same things over and over, and he gets hooked on a thing. Right now he's hooked on his pond, and it's being polluted by the neighbor guy, and he's all upset about it, and nothing we can really do about it. But anyway, he's not doing too good. So I go and see him once in a while. I plan on going, not tomorrow, the next day. I'm going in 2 days to see him again. I try to call him every 2 or 3 days just to talk, and basically it's the same stories every time over and over for a half hour, an hour, but he always appreciates the call. So soon there'll be a day when I won't be able to talk to him, and I'll want to. So I'm doing it now while I can, while he's still here. So on to some other questions. Enough of the sadness. This is from a guy from England, from the UK. He wants to know, hi, why do you call it a cord of wood? Why not call it a ton? It's so much easier. Apparently they sell their wood by the weight. They also sell a lot of their wood by the square meter, I've been told. Here was my response back. No, somebody else responded this to him. Because most people don't have any way to weigh a ton of wood at their location, their home, whatever. But they can stack it and see how much there is volume-wise. They can stack it however high they want it, however wide they can measure. They can figure out how much a cord is. So there's that. I suppose sometimes, some places, they can figure it out by weight. But then again, different wood has different weights. So you have to know all the kinds of woods and how much tonnage they're supposed to be, and then how do you weigh it at the customers? I don't get that. But apparently that's something he thought of and he wanted to ask because he thought us Americans are dumb. Maybe we are. I don't know. I'm sure there's things they do different than us that is good, and some things they do that are better. Just the way it is. But I do know that if you stack wood 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, it's 128 cubic feet, and that is a full cord. That's pretty easy to do. And if you want to figure out how much a square meter is, it is 80% of a face cord or a third of a cord. So you would need almost a little less than 4 cubic meters to equal a full cord. So there's that. Doesn't matter. All I know is that if the buyer and the seller agree on a price and a quantity and everybody's happy, nobody else should worry about it. That's just my opinion. Okay, so we covered that. Let's go on to the next one. I'm going to turn this one off. Okay, here we got a guy from Arizona, 78 years old. And he's talking about pine. His end statement is he said he's figured out how much he's paying for fuel for propane and how much he was paying for wood, even if he's got to buy it, and how much BTUs it puts out. So he's figuring it out, and he knows that burning wood, if he cuts it on his own time, on his own leisure, a little bit of exercise, and he said as long as he keeps his chimney clean, he burns pine because they have two kinds of wood apparently. They have ponderosa pine and they have pinyon pine. So that's what they've got, so that's what they burn. The reason I'm bringing this up is that a lot of people think that if you burn with pine, your house is going to explode. That doesn't really happen because in a lot of the western states, all they have is pine. And if you couldn't burn pine, a lot of those people would either be dead or their houses would all be burned down, or a combination of both things would happen, and that doesn't happen. Pine burns, it just has lower BTUs. You need a lot more pine to get the same heat out of it as you do a lot of the hardwoods, but there's also certain kinds of pine like pinyon pine that is as good as oak. And a lot of people don't know that, and there's a big myth that they think that pine creates creosote. It does not. What creates creosote is moisture in your wood going up the chimney. It doesn't matter what kind of wood you burn. Some people think that pine is bad because what happens is there's sap in it and that will burn and explode. Well, yeah, it does pop and snap like the cedar is. So there's that. Pine just burns a little faster. It's a lighter wood, so it burns faster. It still puts a lot of heat out. I happen to like it for a campfire because it's got a lot of nice flame, as you can see here. Burns great. So nothing wrong with pine. But I can also understand people that are really hooked on hardwood and they think they have to burn either oak or hickory or locust or Osage orange, some of the higher BTUs woods like almond wood or stuff like that, eucalyptus, whatever it is that you guys have. If you're going to cut a full cord of wood, you're going to get a lot of heat out of a full cord of, say, oak or hickory or ironwood or Osage orange, whatever the high quality wood is. And if you had a full cord of pine, it's going to weigh a lot less. You're actually going to get a lot less heat out of it. And in reality, you're doing almost as much work to create that pine. Holy smokes, I almost died right there. It shot right out at me. So you're going to create almost as much work to create that pine firewood as you do oak firewood. So if you've got limited time, energy, resources, I guess then maybe you'd be better off going for the hardwood. If you're buying it, that might be the case too. I like a mixture of it. I like all wood. It's nice to have some stuff that burns and lights easy and has a lot of nice flame to it. It's also nice to have some wood that burns a long time, puts a lot of heat out. So all wood is good wood. More is the right amount. And pine is fine. We'll go to the next question here. Next question that we have. Okay, this is a good question. Now I was talking about storing your wood and stacking versus piles and how to keep your wood ready to burn. So this guy wants to know, how long does it take red oak to dry if it's piled instead of stacked? He stacks everything in a single row, which is good. He said his oak that he's cut a year ago is still at 30% moisture. So he wants to make sure that it's going to be good to go. Well, my answer to him is, first of all, there's a lot of factors to consider. Number one, was it dead standing wood? Meaning that there was no bark on it, which means it's going to be partially or fully dry. Some of the smaller stuff could be fully dry when you cut it. If it's standing dead for 4, 5, 6 years, it could very well be dry and ready to burn. If it's a big bottom butt piece, it might be wet on the inside, but still a lot of the top might be very dry. So that could be dry right away. If you're cutting it from a live tree that is green with leaves on it, it's going to have a lot of moisture. It's going to be very high moisture content. It's going to take a long time to dry. So that's one of the beginning factors. The next one is that obviously if you're splitting it very fine, pieces that are maybe 2 inches thick versus splitting a 20-inch round in half where you've got two halves that are 40 pounds a piece, that's going to take a long time to dry versus your stuff that's split down small to a couple inches. The thinner it is, the faster it will dry. It's that simple. And if you take a 20-inch round and you cut it into two pieces, it's going to take 2-3 years to dry, possibly, depending on your drying conditions, where you put it, how you store it. And if you take that same 20-inch round and you cut it down into, say, 20, 30 pieces, so the pieces are hand-sized, ones you can pick up very easily, and then you stack them off the ground or pile them, they're going to dry a lot faster. And the 20-inch rounds, whether it's the halves or the 30 pieces are going to produce the same amount of heat. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think, oh, if you cut it really small, it won't produce as much heat. That's not true. That is a myth. It will produce the same amount of heat. However, smaller pieces can burn faster, because if you put it in and crisscross it so there's a lot of air, you're basically going to get a lot more oxygen into it, so it will burn a little faster, but it'll put out the same amount of heat, because if it's totally dry, 2 halves from a 20-inch round versus 30 pieces, it's going to weigh the same. It should weigh the same. Same amount of heat out of it. That might be confusing to some of you, but that's the truth. The way to slow down the burn, obviously if you've got a wood stove or a wood boiler, is to damper it down so that it can't breathe. So if you're burning with a wood boiler or a wood stove, you can close the damper down and create a much slower burn because it gets less oxygen. And a lot of people think, oh, I like throwing the big chunks on at night because in the morning there's still coals there. Well, the big part of the reason why there's still coals there in the morning is that the inside of that wood might very well still be very wet. And it's having to use its energy to burn off all that moisture in the form of steam, which is going up your chimney in the form of heat, and you're losing 30% of the heat. So you might think you're getting a lot more heat out of it, but in reality you're not. Another factoid that you might be interested in. Some people, again, have a hard time comprehending that, but it's a fact. Okay, we're going to the next one here. Okay, same question here. The other factors. Another thing to think about is where you store your wood. Is it out in the open where there's no shade? And is it off the ground, say on pallets or stringers or runners, so that it's not laying on the ground, sucking up moisture from the ground? Do you tarp the wood completely over the top and closing all the moisture in there? So you're basically creating a terrarium or a sauna for the wood to sit in there and mold in and grow stuff. If you're covering the wood all the way, it can't breathe. Wood has to breathe. So you want only the top covered if you're going to cover it. I find my wood dries the best not covered for about a year, 6 months to a year. So the sun can hit it, the wind can hit it. Rain does not matter. A lot of people don't get this either. If you're getting it rained on, as long as you don't live in, say, the Pacific Northwest, and you're not getting, a foot of rain every other day. If you live in an area where you get rain once or twice a week at most, and only a little bit, and it can dry, or if you get rain once a month, your wood's going to dry really fast. I know there's people that are in the Southwest and they can cut wood in 3 months because they get no rain, it's hot, it's dry, their wood dries extremely fast. So where you are, how you store it, if it's off the ground, if you cover it, if you leave it open, those all factor into it. The size of the splits, like I mentioned, that matters. Another thing that can matter is if your wood is facing east or west or north or south, depending on your airflow and how the sun hits it. I find that the wood dries better if you've got it in rows or in piles that run east and west. I should say in rows that are north and south, because you're going to get sunshine in the morning, you're going to get sunshine in the afternoon, plus you're going to get prevailing winds from the west blowing through it. So that's going to help too. If you run it the other direction, you're only going to have one side getting sun on it, the south side. The north side might never get sun at all, so it's going to slow down your drying process. And if you get rain on it, it usually dries up just like a sidewalk or your driveway. It'll dry up in a few hours if the sun and the wind is hitting it. So the wood dries actually very fast out in the open. So that's a big thing. If you've got your wood stored underneath a tree where it never gets sunshine, that's going to matter too, because that sun is constantly heating up that wood. And the wood will even dry in the wintertime because your sun is on it. And if the sun is on it, even in the wintertime, on a below freezing day, that heat is constantly drawing hot air up in the form of airflow with thermals going up, and it's sucking air constantly through your wood. It might not be much, but it's something that creates airflow, so there's that. So there's probably a bunch of other factors that matter. Some people like to say they cut their wood when there's leaves on the trees, and then they let it lay with the whole tree there, and all the leaves will suck all the moisture out of the tree, say in the springtime or summertime. Yeah, that's true. But to me, the fastest way to get your wood dry is to get it cut and split off the ground where the sun and the wind can hit it as fast as possible. More time is the big thing. So that's another huge factor, is time. How much time is your wood drying? It takes 3 things, I always say, to dry your wood. Time is number 1, heat, airflow. Those 3 things. That's what matters. And a kiln is the only thing you can do to accelerate drying your wood. That's a huge thing. Now my brother will take wood into his basement in the fall of the year, or even during the winter, and he'll put in a full quart of wood in his basement, kind of around his wood stove, and that air is constantly being pulled and circulated through the house, and his wood stove area where his furnace is a hot room because the stove is in there, so you're constantly having that wood, have the air circulated around that wood, so you're creating an airflow with heat and time, and your wood will dry actually around your wood stove or in your area where you're burning it because you have heat and airflow constantly. And most people keep their house fairly dry. It's not really moist in their house very often, so that can help dry the wood quite a bit. Next thing we have a comment on. This is on a video I did not too long ago with Rick from Husqvarna. This guy made a comment that says, battery operated tools are all a joke. Just ask the North Carolina people who are without power. Treated properly, most gasoline power tools will outlast you, drills and drivers excluded. Well, the problem is if you're depending on gas and you have a hurricane come through and it wipes out all the electricity, all the power, roads are closed. Number one, how are you going to get gas unless you're stocked up? And if all the stores, gas stations are closed down because they don't have any power to pump the gas, how do you get gas? Also, you can, with the battery powered stuff, a lot of it, I have power packs that you can use the solar power and I can charge stuff with that. So there's no perfect answer. Basically, the answer to some of the questions that come up about battery stuff is that it's not a one answer like it's the best. It's just another tool in your toolbox which you can use. And one of the guys here made a comment. He says, well, if you're having issues getting gasoline, there's that. Your gasoline can go bad, and then when you run out of gas, then what do you do if you can't get more? So same thing. One of the things the guy said too, he says you need to try professional grade saws because the professional grade saws are way better and they are way more power. They're getting better and better all the time. When they first came out, they were not good, but they are a lot better now. And I got to tell you, I've used them. They're fantastic, but they're not the end all. They're not for cutting and felling big, huge timber. They're for doing trimming, working in booms, for doing tree jobs, or for doing limbing jobs around your yard, or for cutting some small stuff. They aren't necessarily for, cutting the big redwoods down, if that's your thing. This was my response to this question. I said, it's true, but the tree service people do love them. If you're working in a lift, they are awesome. I also said that they're way better than most people know because most people haven't tried anything, professional grade yet. They've only used the cheap store brand or the Chinese knockoff ones, which aren't that good. They don't last. There's that. And think of it this way, is that back 100 years ago, there were people that made a living selling buggies and horsewhips. Yeah. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, what are those people doing now for jobs? The car kind of replaced them. So new technology is a good thing. It's not going to be instantaneous, change the world, which can happen, I suppose, in some things. However, there's always going to be an evolution, unless we just always stay like the Amish and don't use any technology, use no motors, use no electricity. And if that's your thing, go for it. But I know none of them are watching because they don't watch YouTube, because they don't have TVs, they don't have cameras, they don't do any of that kind of stuff. If that's how you want to live, go be an Amish, I guess. Nothing against the Amish, I'm just saying. They don't use that stuff. There's always going to be technological advances, and I want to take advantage of them as they happen. So there's that. So the next thing I want to cover is someone who saw me doing a bunch of deliveries and hasn't really watched the channel much, and they were amazed that in one day I did I think it was 4 deliveries from a video I did a while ago, and I talked about how much money I brought in. It was like $1,000 a day or something like that, and they're like, holy smokes, every day $1,000? That must be incredible. That's $7,000 a week. That's $3,000 or $30,000 a month. That's $400,000 a year. No, it's not. It's not that. There's a lot of days all I do is cut wood. A lot of days all I do is split wood. A lot of days all I do is move wood. A lot of days I clean up after making wood. A lot of days I don't work in the wood yard at all. So none of those days I'm making money. The days I'm delivering wood, yes, I am making some money. Now, I'm delivering some of the wood that was from tree service wood. That stuff is basically free wood, other than my labor, my time, the machines I use, the energy it costs to produce it. So yeah, I can make more money doing that. But a lot of the stuff I'm producing is from logs that I have bought in log form and from trucks, semi-truck loads. And one load is going to cost me around $1,500, $1,600. And I buy like 10 of those a year. So right there, you're talking $16,000, $18,000, $20,000 a year I'm spending on logs. So yeah, it goes right back out. I also I have to buy gas. I have to pay for insurance. I also have to pay for upkeep and maintenance on all the machines. I have to buy new chains, new chainsaws, all the stuff that goes into producing wood. There's a lot of costs involved in running every business. And most businesses would be ecstatic if they could have a 20 or 30% profit once everything is paid for. Firewood for me is a little better than that because I get a lot of wood for free. And I'm also having a lot of the wood where I can turn it around fairly fast because it's ash or things like that, or I'm buying dead standing wood, so it's pretty dry, so I can turn it over faster. Inventory is a big killer of businesses because a lot of people stock up and then it sits, and then you got money not producing sales because you got tons of money stuck into your product, and that can hurt. You want to turn stuff over as fast as possible. So it's not all rainbows and lollipops and sunshine. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So it's not like I just skip and whistle to the bank every day with a bag of money. There's a lot of days where I have no money and I got to go to the bank and say, hey, I need some money because I got to buy some stuff. I'm looking at getting a new truck. The truck I've got now, I bought 10 years ago. It was about $32,000. That same truck right now is about $65,000. There's some real costs involved in this. My trailers, I had to buy those. My splitter, chainsaws, all that stuff. It all costs money. So it's not like you just get to go to the bank happily or I don't have a room in my house that's just full of money like Scrooge McDuck, whatever his name was. I don't go in there and swim around in the money. It's not how it works. Most of the time I come home and my wife does this, which means give me the money before you go buy something you don't need. So there's that. So that's all I got for today, folks. I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to enjoy this. It's delicious. And I'm going to put some more wood in the fire and I'm going to answer comments from today's video, which for you guys was a month ago now, but that's what's going to happen. So I'll see you tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. We're going to cut some wood tomorrow. That's the plan. Chainsaw day. Come on back. I'll see you then. Good night, Irene.